In this video, I'm going to document my attempt to fix this Canon S100 camera. You can see here that the camera is off, but the lens is still out. And when you turn it on, right, you get the lens error will shut down automatically, restart camera, but nothing's happening. This problem occurs to a lot of people, usually because they drop it or because they get dirt into it. In my case, it occurred in the process of converting this to an infrared camera. I made the mistake of following some guy's blog that said once you got the IR blocking filter out, you could just put the two sides of the case together and test it out and test the focus. And that's not really the case, because without the screws back in the two sides of the case, it will bind the lens and cause you this lens error problem. So I'm back now to replace the lens with one I bought off of eBay. Here's the lens, lens assembly. And when you buy these things off of eBay, you have to be careful that they actually look like the one that you have. There are two types that I saw. One picture has this little plug on it, and the other type doesn't have it. I don't know what the other type is, but mine has this plug. So I bought this particular lens to try it out. So I'm not sure if this is going to work, but we're going to try it and see what happens. A few suggestions about setting up your work area before you start on something like this. The first thing is I've got a nice clean work area here. I've got all the dust off of it, and I'm working in a room that has a hardwood floor, because I guarantee you, you will drop one of these tiny little screws, and if you happen to be on carpeting or on a rug, you'll never find it. So find yourself a location with a hardwood floor, or put something underneath the table so that if you drop a screw, you can get it. I've also got a couple of different sets of tools here, because I'm not sure what I'm going to be looking at. I think most of the time I'll be using this number 0 Phillips head screwdriver, but there may be other occasions where I have something else. And I also have this little grabber for putting the screws back in. We do want to try to reassemble this, so having a grabber to get the screws started is going to be very helpful. And for those of us that are under 30 that can't remember what we did, I am going to be writing down what each part came from and taping all the parts on a piece of paper in the order that I took them off of, so that when I get to the assemble part, I can just work backwards and put everything back in, and that way not have any parts left over. Okay, so let's start this. First thing, of course, is make sure you have the battery out, and make sure you take the SD card out. And you also need to make sure that this is not a day when there's a lot of static electricity in the air. If this is a day where every time you touch a doorknob or this water spigot handle you get zapped, you probably don't want to do this, because this is an electronic instrument, and zapping the insides of it with static electricity is not going to do you any good. So the first thing you have are 5 screws that come out of the side and bottom of the camera. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's actually a 7th one inside here that's slightly different. So first I'm going to take the side ones off. There's one. Okay, so I'm going to take these 4 side screws, put them up here on this piece of paper, and I'm going to put a piece of Scotch tape over them so they don't fly off somewhere. And I'm going to label on this side. And this is sheet 1. Okay, now I'm going to take the 2 bottom screws off. So there's 2 bottom screws. And they look a lot like the side screw, so they may actually be the same kind. And then we have this screw in the interior, but it doesn't look like I need to play with that one yet. Okay, so this back tilts up, and then there's a couple of latches inside here. So I've got this little flat bladed screwdriver, and I'm going to try to undo the latches here very carefully. You don't really want to make any marks on this thing. There. Okay, so there's the back. And all these little buttons are retained, so I don't need to worry about that. And I'm going to try to take off the front. And the front piece has a very delicate little plug here. So you have to be careful about that. A lot of times there's a little, see if it'll come out. It comes right out. Sometimes there's a little latch here that you flip up and pull it out, but this looks like it just pulled right out. So now I have the front cover off. Whoops, okay, and now we have a little side cover. That's off. So what I'm going to be doing is pulling out this assembly. So you can see it's got a piece over here. This looks like the flash assembly has to come off. And we've got a connector there, a little connector there, and this little connector goes down in there. So somehow we have to find out how to pull all that apart. So I guess the next thing I need to do is pull off this LCD screen. The LCD screen just has one little, and that screwdriver is too big. So let's now this little frame comes out, and take a look when you pull it out at how it goes in. And there's a little zigzag right here. There's a couple other little zigzags, so you want to be able to put that back in. And then there's a little tab that latches under there. So there's your LCD frame. The LCD itself has two little tabs on this side, so you've got to ease it out like that. And so this one on the top looks like it just plugs in, and I've got a pair of tweezers here to pull that out. And watch out when you're pulling things that you don't go whoop and rip it all out. Okay, somehow we have to get under there. So I see a screw there. So let's see what happens if I take that off. You can see where if you don't label all these, you're going to end up at the end not knowing what you've got. So now we have two connectors over on this side. There's one, and see this little thing here flips up. And then this one comes out, in theory. That slides right out. let's see about taking off that top of the case. And I see two screws that might do it. This one. And that is definitely a different type of screw because it's going into plastic. I'll call that case top left. So now the case top is loose, and you always want to be careful when you pull this off because you may have parts flying. Okay, and this one has another little cable to it, and it looks like this one just pulls straight out also. The case top. I can see it's going to be a challenge getting all these back together. So now it's a little bit easier to see this LCD connector. Okay, so now it's disconnected. Let's see if we can work it out of that. There, now the LCD comes out. Alright, so now you can see there's a metal frame here, and it looks like the lens is mounted to this metal frame. So the question is, how much more do we need to take out to get to the lens? And it looks like we need to work from this side and go that way. There's two little screws right there and there. I'm going to pull those. It looks like that's what's holding the flash on. Little connector right up there, and it looks like it's one that just plugs in, so we'll try to tease that up and see what happens. Yeah, there it goes. So there's the flash. Got a little battery in it. I wonder what happens when that battery fails. Alright, we're getting closer. So again, just comparing here. So now I've got three connectors, this one, and one buried down there. So before I go any further, I'm going to disconnect the connectors. Let's see, this one is a plug-in. You can see from here it just presses in. So we'll pry that up. That one popped up. This one has a little latch in it. And this one over on this side has a little latch kind of hidden underneath this cable. There. And then looking on the back, I can see that we have one screw, two screws, three screws, four screws. This is for something else. So we're just going to remove those four screws. And they are different sizes. So right away I need to know that I need to mark these separately. So we're going to have an upper left, an upper right, a lower left, and it's not completely loose, and I can see here that some of these things are fitted onto it. So this little plug here is fitted onto the lens. Now this is a little washer that goes between the lens and the case, so we'll put this over here with the case. So somewhere up in here, oh, I see it, there's another little screw. There's one underneath this, so let's see if I can get this up. It's just, it looks like it's taped or something onto the top of the lens. There we go. Looks like some double-sided tape there. And there's another screw right there. This is the little GPS unit here. And it looks like something's mounted under, something's holding the lens on underneath that. Well, if it wasn't that, I'm going to put that back on there. And we'll just put it on loosely and try to remember to tighten that. Was just a press fit in there. Okay, so now we have the old lens out, and now would be a good time to make sure that all the parts look the same. Alright, so old lens over there, and now we start putting it back together. so it's now been reassembled. Now's the time to find out if it's going to work. So we put the battery back in. Put the SD card back in. And press the button. Well, that's interesting. Nope, didn't work so good. So the problem we had with the lens, getting it to work, is fixed, at least for the moment. And the problem is the same one that other people have found that caused the original issue with the lens, which is this connector here. The cable coming from the lens into the connector is about 1 millimeter too high to line up perfectly, and so it gets cocked in there. And that may explain why there are so many lenses for the S100 on eBay so cheap, is because these are the original lenses that got tossed because this cable didn't line up. So now I sort of have it lined up. It's still cocked a little bit, but I tried it a second ago and it worked again, so let's try it again this time. See if I can get the case back together. Battery. And turn it on. Okay, so there we go. It's working. Goes off. Back on again. Alright, so hopefully it will stay in there. If not, then I'll have to do a little bit more jury rigging of it to get the connector to stay, but it's working.